All right, let's get rolling. Thank y'all for being here. Let's welcome Monty back. Welcome back off sidelines. Welcome. The fun time of year. And so we had a strong winter. I know it's been a while since I've been in front of you guys, but I thought our strength and conditioning under Mike Joseph, and I'll say this at the start here, we've really worked where the infrastructure of our program's in a really good spot, and he's I think he's as good as anybody in the business in his role in directing our strength and conditioning. Really focused on overall athleticism during the off season, and I'm pleased with where our guys are. The other thing is, from a nutrition standpoint, we've come a really long way with what we're doing from meals to our staffing. Haley Bishop directs that unit, and our guys are leaner. They look better. I think you're going to see when you watch them Thursday. I think it's the first time you guys get an opportunity to see them. Is you're going to notice some improvements in her group. Should be commended for that as well. And really, from the winter standpoint, with some of the rules that have changed stuff, we've been able to work some fundamentals. And so work some fundamentals in some situations. So pleased with where we're at. Our staff and our players are energized about the start of spring. Kind of just talk about objectives first, like what do we want to get out of it? I think the first one is establish an identity. And that's something we really, from the start, we've kind of treated January as kind of a new beginning. And even though we're going into year 5 here, we've kind of gone back and back to the basics. And really what we want to do is we want to establish our identity. And we've laid it out in 4 ways. And I'll share with you all what I share with our players. Is first of all, we want to be disciplined. I think sometimes discipline has a negative connotation. That's not what this is. When you talk about discipline, we got to get our alignments, our assignments. We got to be better conditioned. Second thing is strain, just playing with extreme effort. Third thing is physicality, and that's what we really got to work on this spring, is just from a blocking and tackling perspective. And the fourth thing is just smart. We've got to, we're putting a focus on situational football and being better in certain situations. So the first objective is just establishing our identity. Second thing is competition, and we got competition for spots. We got competition we do in special teams wise, and then offense and defense. Obviously, going against each other all spring. We want to focus on our fundamentals. We want to get repetitions on our schemes, and then we got to evaluate personnel. And the way we describe it to our players is they get 15. The guys that are in the program right now have 15 practices, and then everybody that joins our program after spring, whether it's in May or sometime in the summer, they'll have the first 14 practices in fall camp to show that they're ready to play. I'll start on offense. Energized by the staff changes. Bilal Marshall at wide receivers, Blaine Stewart, both young guys, have a ton of juice about them. Really enjoying that. Chad's embraced the role. Our guys enjoy him, and so excited about those guys. O-line wise, I think it's about establishing depth this spring, and then finding some position fits. We're going to move some guys around just to give us some versatility. Excited to see some guys like Sullivan Weedman. I think he's ready to take a next step. Guy redshirted. Mo Hamilton, same. And then Dylan Ray. Those are some guys I'm really kind of excited about. Frazier will be limited. He'll be practicing, but he'll be limited a little bit this spring. Probably keep him out of some 11-on-11 work. At receiver, I think it's about who's going to be the guy. Who's going to fill, that role of being kind of the go-to guy. I think we've got some guys that, Devin Carter's obviously done that at another school. We have high expectations for him, but I think there's going to be some real growth. I think Jeremiah Aaron, Cortez Braham, Preston Fox, Hudson Clement, Jarrell Williams. I think those guys have had really productive winters, and I think they're ready to take a step. Grayson will be limited early for about the first week, and then he'll be full speed. So when you guys see that on Thursday, and then we've moved Davis Mallinger to wideout. So played safety. We moved him to wideout, and played receiver in high school. Obviously played his first 2 years here at defensive back, but want to add his speed to offense. And so he's out this spring. He'll be able to do some drills on the side, but if you remember, he missed the last 4 or 5 games in the fall and with a season-ending injury, and he's still rehabbing that. Running back, it's just for that room to continue to grow. We've got to find ways to get multiple running backs on the field. We'll do some of that in the spring. CJ will be limited. He'll practice. He'll be a little limited as he recovers from the surgery that he had at the end of the fall. And then at tight end, I think the main point for them is getting them involved in the pass game. Excited about seeing Cole Taylor. We need Victor and Will Dixon. Those guys, those are two that we really need to push and get more out of. And so on defense, it's really about getting back to basics. We did not play up to our standards last year, and we've simplified from a schematic standpoint, and so early on, alignment and communication is going to be the focal point on that side of the ball. Talking about the defensive line, is we've got some newcomers up there and some guys that got to increase their role, and so we're going to really push them. I think that everything defensively starts up front and then moves backwards. And so we've got to be able to establish the line of scrimmage and get back in. And we've done that in the past. Didn't do as good a job of it last year. And so that's going to be a point of emphasis. Just so you know, limited, Jalen Thornton will be limited. And then out for the spring will be Zachy Lawton. He's recovering from surgery that kept him out of the second half of the season last year. And then Asani Redwood. Asani had an injury during the winter that will keep him out for spring ball. At linebacker, I think Lee Koba is ready to take a next step. Really, for Trey Lathan, Jeremiah Trotter, Ben Cutter, Jaito, some of those guys, this spring's huge for them because getting live reps. And I really think that's a position where we're going to show a lot of improvement. I'm excited about that group. There's some youth in there, but there's talent, And I saw somebody talk about this in a March Madness press conference the other day. You'd like to have experienced talent, but if you had to choose, you're taking talent over experience, and I think we have real talent in that room. And then at outside linebacker, Bartlett I think is had one of the best winners in our program, and then James Hurd. Really excited to see him. And as good a pass rusher as we brought in here from a high school perspective. And then in the secondary, that's going to be a group that we put a lot of pressure on them last year, and some guys had to play maybe before they were ready. And I think what happens a lot of times is you got to go through some pain there, which we did. We went through some pain with our secondary play last year, but also expect that to be one of the most improved units on our team. And so we simplified some to help them. And and my expectation is we'll be much improved, and I think it'll show by the end of the spring. Special teams-wise, most of the time in the spring what we'll do is just work our fundamentals. And so not a whole lot of 11-on-11 special teams work. We'll work more fundamentals. And then, we'll have a field goal competition and a kickoff competition. So Danny King is obviously returning. And then Michael has joined us and had a really good career at Georgia State, so excited to see him live for the first time tomorrow. And just wrapping up, this is our first opportunity to get it fixed, and we're not trying to hide from last year not being good enough. I think that when you talk about getting things fixed, and this is the way that we've been talking about it program-wise, and I'll say it publicly, I think it starts – this comes from one of our data analytics companies. It talks about the 3 E's. So first one is efficiency, and so we've got to get better at first down, third down, and red zone efficiency. We've got to be better in those areas. And then it's about explosives. And last year we gave up way too many explosive plays, and we got to figure out a way offensively to utilize our ability to run the ball to create explosives down the field. And the third E be eliminate errors. Offensively, that's procedure penalties, that's turnovers, TFL, sacks. Defensively, it's alignment issues and communication and missed tackles. So when we talk about fixing it, which is what we've got to do, I know that's a term that Hugs has used, but is efficiency, explosives, and eliminate errors. And so that's what I had. I'll take questions. I know that I'm the warm-up act for the boss today, so and so I'll take questions.
So, Neal, you went through a bunch of injuries in a position change. Anything else injury-wise that'll limit, keep anybody out, or any other position changes that you're going to experiment with this?
No, not really. We've got Torres Simmons. We moved back to a defensive end. The injuries I tried to cover there because y'all are going to see it on practice. I wanted y'all to know who was limited, who was out. So he's recovering. He had a little procedure. He's just recovering. Yeah, he's fine. If we played, he'd be good to go. It's more of a risk reward for him.
Ballinger, some of the guys you mentioned, are you expecting back in the summer or the fall?
Yeah. So everybody, Redwood is, I'll be able to speak to him later in the spring. But everybody else, we think when we come back after their May break in June, Keeney will be ready to go. So let me repeat that. No, sorry, Siri. Yeah.
Thank you.
So quarterback competition obviously is going to be a focal point this spring. What do you thought of what you're going to see there?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to set expectations. I don't plan on making a decision on this. So this is just really clear until we get into fall camp. Okay, and that's what I've shared with both of them. This is going to be, we're playing the long game on this, and so we'll split the reps with Garrett and Nico through the entire spring, and there's going to be some ups and downs with that, but we're going to split the reps. We'll carry that competition in the summer into the fall. Now, if it's just really clear, then we'll make a choice, but I don't foresee that happening.
When you mentioned on setting the program identity, and there were some staff changes and things like that, does the need to kind of reset the program identity, does that stem off of maybe last year not going as well as you wanted, or because of the personnel being totally different, or is this kind of a plan that would have happened anyway because this is fifth year? Sometimes you reset after a coach has been at a program for 4+ years. What kind of led to that?
Yeah, I think that the fact that we didn't get the results we wanted, and like I said, we did not play well enough last year, and that's not something that we've been hiding from. We've kind of confronted that, right? And so when things don't go the way you want them to go, you don't have the results you want to go, I think you reset. And so that's kind of where we're at. And we really feel like from an identity standpoint, we have to establish that. And it started in the winter. It's got to carry over to spring when you actually can wear equipment. And then it's got to go from the summer, or from spring to summer into fall camp, and then obviously into the season and execute it. But that's what triggered it, Mike.
As part of that identity, have you thought about any changes to the offense given the personnel you have?
Yeah, we'll be different. Now, I'd be a fool to sit up here and talk about that because, but yeah, I think there's, schematically, we return our offensive line and we've got a really good running back room, so I think that from an offensive perspective, you got to use the pieces that you have. And we think we have some really good pieces. Sometimes people focus on maybe what you don't have, but we have one of the highest returning, rates at the offensive line as far as games played, starts made, and that's a group that's played pretty well. And we've also got some young guys that I think that are going to be factor there. And then at running back, we got really good depth. Very few running back rooms in the country have 4 guys that have been really productive. And I think Justin almost had 100. The other 3 guys had over 100 yards in a game last year, and so I think that speaks well.
To that, you've got all but I think 13 of your rushing yards returning. Mm-hmm. You've got your O-line. Do you spend more time expanding that part, or do you spend more time developing the wide receiver part of it?
Well, I think it's a mix. So like when you go into it, obviously you spend all winter studying okay, what are some teams doing that are like you, that have been successful. We have running quarterbacks now for the first time, and that both the guys that are vying for the starting quarterback job are both capable of pulling the ball on any read plays, but also calling quarterback runs, which changes the game. it makes it easier from a play calling perspective, and puts pressure on it, especially on some first and third downs where we've got to get better. And so from a scheme standpoint, which the point in the spring is to get repetitions in your base schemes. You're not necessarily game planning who you're going to play in the fall. It's about getting your base repetitions. So we'll do that. But also we've got to in scrimmage situations and live settings, we got to find out which receivers we can count on. I got a pretty good idea of the O-linemen that I can count on because I've watched them. I got a pretty good idea of the running backs that we can count on. We got to see the quarterbacks and the receivers, and then the pass-catching tight ends. Can they execute in pressure situations? And I think in the spring we've got to set them up to do that, and then we got to repeat that in fall camp.
When you have a group of inexperienced wide receivers, in your experience, is there something off-season wise that they can do specifically that leads to taking a step forward in the fall?
Well, I think in the offseason it's about making sure they're confident when they go out there, right? And so how do you do that? Well, the way the rules work now, we're able to do football basically year-round, okay? And it's limited from a time perspective, but they're able to do that. So confidence starts with knowing what to do, so your alignment and your assignment. The other thing I think this group has done probably a better job than any group we've had, is the amount of balls they've caught in the offseason. And a lot of that's due to Coach Marshall. He's done a nice job of making that a competition, and the kids have bought into it. So, yeah, I think the confidence piece as far as catching the ball, once you have that many repetitions, your confidence, all we always talk about, what is confidence? Well, confidence is earned. How do you earn it? Through repetitions, right? So I don't know. Hopefully that answers.
Will you scrimmage more this
We're going to play more 11 on 11.
Okay.
Like scrimmage, tackle to the ground, I don't know. I don't know if you can get away with it in this day and age because you like depth, but we're going to get through about the first 6 days and really work on installing. And then the back part of spring is going to be a lot of 11 on 11 playing. Now, how much we'll tackle to the ground, we'll see, but there's going to be a lot of just 11 on 11 playing because I think we need to play. Bye.
Talk about identity. What in a perfect world, what would be the identity of this football team?
I think it's too early to tell. Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. I think I'll have a better answer for you, but it won't be perfect at the end of the spring. I think coming out of fall, I'll have I think that what we have to do, okay, and I think this proves like going back is, over a number of years in the Big 12 is we've got to continue to run the ball and even improve what we've done. And we've made improvements each and every year. Okay, so we have to continue to do that. And then we've got to go back from a schematic standpoint in personnel that we're using defensively and focus on stopping the run. We have to do that. So much is talked about last year, us giving up pass yardage and explosive pass plays. Well, that's accurate, but what hurt us is giving up run yardage, especially on first downs. Okay, so we got to be a team that runs the football, stops the run. But as far as like who we're going to be from offense, defense, special teams, I think we got to get at least through some padded practices.
With Dante being gone from the program now, he's been there a long time, obviously, and he's pursuing the NFL.
Did a great job at Combine too. Like, they're really pleased for him. Yeah, really, like, and not only on the field, but he and Bryce. I think there's a couple things on that, and I'll come back to you, Mike. But a couple things. Like Bryce and Dante did extremely well at the Combine, which I think speaks to, all right, what I talked about with Mike earlier. The other thing I thought they did, the feedback that I got is they did really well in their interviews. Go on, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I connect with that. I was at a lot of that. But you had a security of Dante could almost be a coach on the field, could help you. He was clearly the leader of the defense, especially from a defensive perspective, because you did also lose somebody that went into last year as a leader, transfer-wise. Is there an importance for you to find a leader to that defense as you're trying to set the tone and reboot that? And what process is that going to be in terms of that timeline for you? Is that you're already looking at this could be that guy, or are you letting it kind of unfold to you? Is that necessary?
Well, I think we have natural guys that are positioned to move up in that role, right? So like a Sean Martin. Sean Martin's played a bunch of football. He's as talented as anyone we have. And my expectation is his production is going to match his talent, maybe exceed that this year. But he's also one of the best people we have in our program. We always talk about leaders. Well, who are your leaders? Well, they're your best players. They're your hardest workers or your best people, right? Well, your best players are always pretty obvious, right? They produce at a high level. Your best people, those are guys like Grayson. He's one examples. Guys that do the right things. Those take a little bit longer to establish, okay? And who are your hardest workers? Well, that takes a little time as well, right? Well, Sean Martin, playing defensive end, he fits all three of those criteria. He's one of our best players, one of the hardest workers, one of the best people, right? So I think the natural progression for him is as he moves into a starting role, which he started most of the year last year, but now he's more comfortable, he's more confident. Now he can feel like a leader of that group. And at the second level is Lee, who's been in our program now for a year, was productive, has some things he's got to get better at, has attacked those in the offseason. But also, we've got some really good young players in that room that have great leadership. Like Josiah Trotter, like he's got unbelievable leadership abilities. Now he's a true freshman. I'm going to ask him to lead that room as a true freshman. But he's got the it factor as far as that's concerned. So when you lead, like we're going to ask Lee to, he's got some guys in that room that have characteristics that are much easier to lead. Trey Lathan, those guys are easy. They're better followers because they're doing the right things themselves. Then the secondary, Aubrey Burks. Aubrey was, I thought at times last year he played at an elite level, and now he's more confident. He feels really good about knowing the whole structure of the defense, and so now as someone that's had success and is a really hard worker, I think he'll naturally go into that leadership role as well.
You mentioned shuffling guys around up front. What's the situation at right tackle? Still the two guys from last year?
So we're going to work Nestor some there. Yeah, the two guys there. We're going to play Yates. We're going to get Yates some reps at center and guard too, to get some versatility. And it's the same thing. Like, y'all have heard me say this, so I don't want to, sound like I'm repeating myself a lot. But, like, we got to find the best five. Let's find the best five, and we'll fit them in there. But Nestor will get tackle reps, and then Yates and Jaquay will get guard and tackle reps. Yates will get center and guard. Those newcomers, like Mo Hamilton, we're going to lock him in. He'll be at guard. He'll play only guard. Dylan Ray's going to play only tackle. Nick Malone's going to only play tackle. Sully Weedman's only going to play guard. But some of the guys that have played, like Wyatt, we're going to leave him at left tackle. He'll play left tackle. But the rest of those guys, we're going to try to move around a little bit.
Is it exciting that you're going to play all four conference newcomers this year?
I don't know. That's a long way away. We got a pretty good team. We play first. We got to get over that one. What, Mike? Were you asking something?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the point you made about talent, experience, and linebacker. I'm guessing that there's an athleticism, speed, or something there too. So I understand that, but is it more dangerous and more fun to think about a defense that can get to spots faster? Maybe doesn't know how to get there instinctually, but if you can do some things physically that maybe you couldn't do before.
You can erase mistakes. Yeah, you can erase mistakes. It's a speed game. I think that if you look at the people in our league, especially guys, because there's several teams in our league that made abnormal gains last year on the defensive side of the ball, made jumps, right? And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make a abnormal gain from 22 to 23 because our 22 numbers weren't very good. And so to do that, there's some things schematically that we'll implement and that we've got to do a better job of, and we're going to put our guys in a better position. But also we got to get, there's a player aspect of that too. And speed, when you start talking about defense, speed and physicality, it's not earth-shattering. And so those guys like, Montre Miller, brought him in from Kent State, he can really run. He can really run. And we didn't run great at corner last year. Well, he can run. You start like Trotter and Cutter, those guys can really run. Trey Lathan, he can really run. Like James Hurd, he's fast, And I think the other thing too is talking about some of these guys that were developmental players that got pushed into action, like Jacoby Spells. Well, there's no question he'll be one of the most improved play. He had to play a lot as a true freshman, and you're talking about a guy that just started playing DB as a junior in high school. He didn't have a whole lot of experience. Like Wilson Lamp, he's ready to take the next step. He didn't play any DB till he got here. So, I think some of those guys that that do have athletic ability. Now they've got some game experience, and I think, and that's what I was talking about in the secondary, I think you'll see some significant gains, like when you come and watch them throughout the spring.
Where does that have to be? The good news, bad news is you got everybody back that had an interception last year.
Bad news, we didn't have very many.
4.
Yeah, well, some of that's we got to change what we're doing. We're doing some things differently from a coverage aspect to give our guys a better chance too.
You know, people say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. You obviously want to settle on one. How do you go about evaluating that? And given their talents, you know, they have some strengths and differences. Is there a way you can see situationally picking it?
Like playing both. Yeah, I think it's too early for that. Skill wise, they're similar from a skill perspective. The hard thing is one of them's right-handed, one of them's left-handed. So it's like that doesn't matter to you all. It's hard on me sometimes, but from a skill standpoint, they're similar, and so we don't have to, from an offensive standpoint. Like the last couple of years, we would have something, we would practice some things for Garrett that we didn't necessarily do for Jared or JT. That's not the case anymore. So from a practice perspective, they both can run the same style, which will be helpful. And I'm just going to kind of let it play out, really. I think both of them are going to have some ups and downs. I think it speaks to them, like how I feel about them, the fact that we didn't go out and get a transfer quarterback, because we could have, right? And so I think it speaks to how we feel about them is the fact that we didn't.
Neal, you mentioned transfers now that you've gone through winter. What do you guys still need to add if possible? And then as well, where are the new coaches? Where are their areas at?
Recruiting wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, so let's start with the transfer piece. So still like to add D-line, when we talk about May, I think we still have room for a secondary piece. And then offensively, just want to kind of let it see, wideout would be the first thing. The good thing is the way the rules work, we'll be able to evaluate in the spring and have a clear path going into May when the portal window opens up. From a recruiting standpoint, from an area, so Blaine will have a good chunk of West Virginia. Being from here, he'll have some Western PA, being familiar with that area after being with the Steelers for a while. And then he goes into D.C. I'm just trying to look at the map here. And I'll get you this I'll get both of you all this. And then Bilal will be in Virginia Beach. Okay, that kind of that area down there, and then he'll be down in Miami, South Florida. Yeah.
Your observations on the newcomers who came in January, either transfers or true freshmen. You got an analysis of what
Yeah, I think it's too early. Ask me on Thursday. Okay, let me get a couple days in, and the good thing is, like, I will say this is, like, they've done what we've asked them to do. This is the least amount of issues we've ever had in a winter with newcomers, because it's an adjustment. Now, I don't care if you're transferring junior college, high school, there's an adjustment, and we've had very few issues. And I think part of that is like within that, because Mike keeps some of the newcomers in their own lifting group for about the first month to 6 weeks. Well, offensively, Devin Carter, you're talking about he's grown, so like there was no doubt who the alpha was in that newcomer group. And I think and you had Cole Taylor, who's played a lot of football at LSU in that. And then defensively, the same thing is you've got, all right, Amontre Miller, who's played a lot, but you've got some really mature freshmen in there, Trotter, Cutter, Hurd, et cetera, that are in that group as well. So I think that speaks well to them. But as far as football-wise, let's let them practice a couple times.
On your offense, getting 2 backs in the field, what do you have to do to make that work? Not just put it out there or something.
It's a really good thought, Mike. So I think 2 things. They got to be able to show they can block for each other. Last time we tried to do this back in 19 when we had a little bit of depth, like that was really what prevented us from doing that is they got to be able to block, and the second thing is they've got to show some versatility to be able to move around and play it wide out and be able to catch the ball. And so that's the two things.
For you, 4 or 5 receivers is air raid, right? This is 2 backs. You don't have as much room for all that. I know it's not vastly different, but just thinking differently about how to move the ball in your pieces just seems like a bit of a change.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit different. I think you've got your thought process changes, your how you practice changes. We don't have just a large number of wideouts. Again, from a philosophy standpoint, y'all have heard me say this really for the last 6 or 9 or probably 9 to 12 months now, is the old school approach of having 10 or 12 scholarship receivers on your roster. I just don't think that's the best way to do it now. I think it's you have 6 or 8, and you have some guys you feature and you have some solid backups, because you just can't make those. You can't keep the guys happy, and so what happens is they become sour, and then create bad deal in the locker room. So now I think you have shorter numbers, but with doing that, you got to practice smarter. If not, you'll get them hurt by trying to run them too much. And so, you have to. We've had to make some changes. You got to evolve, or it doesn't work out. So, but yeah, it's been a change of mindset without question, Mike.
What kind of emphasis in the spring do you put on improving kickoff return?
Yeah, well, we went out and recruited a returner. That was the first piece of it, and then what we're going to do is really work a bunch of fundamentals, and we're going to be simple. And we got to be able to. The way the game's changed is, and this is something we spend a lot of time studying, is there's certain weeks we just got to put our hand up, fair catch, or take it on the 25. That's just what you got to do. So I think picking and choosing when we're going to return it, and then the fact that in recruiting we went out with Jay Sean Polk and found a guy that's had success, and then just cleaning up some things we're doing schematically. Y'all been watching the XFL. It's an interesting kickoff rule. I'm not sure everybody shouldn't use that. It really is. It's I think there's something to that. I think it's more exciting. There's less collisions. Anyway, soapbox on that one, but
The opposite of how the XFL started 20 years ago.
yeah,
Less collisions.
yeah. No, I really do. I think there is a couple rules things that they're doing that make a lot of sense for our game.
Okay, anything else for Coach? All right, thank you very much.
Deal.